I'm Jordy.
I'm Julio. This video, Jordy will be talking about the I-129F form that she filed to get a K1 visa process. I won't be in this video much because this form is completed by the American fiance, in our case Jordy. So
I'll be talking about this in this video.
All these papers.
Okay, so we had two binders for this. We started out and I just had this blue binder that had everything in it, and then when I went to El Salvador to visit him the last time before we thought that his interview would be, I took everything to him and then he had this big huge black binder. So in here is where we have all of our actual forms, and in here is just kind of copies and then leftovers. So I have this big binder, and in here I have tabs. I have general instructions, the step 1, which is actually the I-129F, the sponsorship, the DS-160, which is step 2, but we're not going to get that far today. But basically I used this binder and printed out any information I could find about starting the K1 process, because as we said in our previous video, if you watched it, we did everything on our own. It took me about 2 months from start until sending it off because I'm very thorough and I wanted to make sure I had everything done, all my bases covered. So let's just dive right in. The I-129F is the petition for alien fiancé. So that is what the American fiancé actually has to send off to get the United States government to agree to consider letting this fiancé into the country. So this step is completely the responsibility of the American fiancé. It's pretty basic information in the application itself. It's like address, full name, have you used any other name since you were born, work history, and the same for the foreign fiancé as well. They ask that you don't paperclip anything together or staple. So we just put literally all of our papers into a manila envelope and sent them. We didn't hole punch them. They ask that if you can to 2-hole punch at the top, but we didn't have a 2-hole punch for the top. So we just literally stuck all of them in an envelope and sent them. I blacked all of our personal information out on some of these, and on some other ones I'll just try to put little pictures on the screen of what they actually look like. So my first thing was this cover letter. And I strongly encourage you to use a cover letter. So this is what our cover letter looked like. It just says, it's up here it had my name and address, and then down here it had who we sent it to. You can check online on uscis.gov to see where you need to send yours to. We sent ours to the Texas Service Office, so it just says United States Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Then it has the P.O. Box in Dallas, Texas, because that's just where we needed to send ours to. And then it says, to whom it may concern, I'm the petitioner, insert name here, filing this form I-129F for my alien fiancé, insert their name there. We are an engaged couple seeking to marry each other in the U.S. And then it just lists the contents in order. So however you list them, make sure that that's the order that you're actually going to put them in. So it has the cover letter, the personal check or money order. Whenever we sent this off, it was $535. So I just included a personal check for $535, and you address it to United States Customs and Immigration Services. You write that on the check line. And then Form G1145, Form I-129F, U.S. Proof of Citizenship, evidence of intent to marry statement, circumstance of meeting, proof of meeting, and then there's 3 little parts of proof of meeting, proof of relationship, and then passport pictures. So there's a lot of documents that were included in here. It was a pretty thick envelope, but we'll go through all of them. So my personal check, I just paper clipped it. Then Form G1145. Form G1145 is the e-notification of application and petition acceptance. So basically it kind of goes over it a little bit here. It's just saying that they can email you when they receive your application. They can email you when your application is approved. So you just put your last name, full name, middle name, email address, and phone number. So they can email you, text you whenever they receive it, and whenever it's accepted or denied, if that's the case. So we did that. We did that with all of our forms that we filed so far. Just makes it a little bit easier. And then we went to the form I-129F. This form, I-129F, is 13 pages from start to finish. This is the full application, like the big one. First, it just asks for information about you, your full name, other names used, and your mailing address. Like, it's pretty simple information. And then address history, employment history, information about you, information about your parents, where your parents lived, and then citizenship information. I put that I had citizenship through birth in the United States. Then it goes into, have you ever filed a form like this before? Were you accepted? Were you denied? I had never done this, so I just put no. More information about your beneficiary, his addresses, his parents' information, employment history. It's pretty much the same information for both the petitioner and the beneficiary. So then it asks about how you met. So this is where you just kind of type a short little blurb about how you met your fiance. And if you can't fit it into the 5-6 lines that are there, there's pages for additional information. Then it asks if you use an international marriage broker. I put no. The consular processing information. So your beneficiary will apply for a visa abroad at the U.S. Embassy for the U.S. Consulate at, because he's from El Salvador, we put the city was San Salvador, where the embassy is, and then the country is El Salvador. So wherever it is that your fiance is from, that's where you will put. Then it goes into criminal information. Have you ever committed these crimes? So I put no. And then biographic information, what's your weight, height. It's really basic stuff. Then it asks if you use an interpreter, a preparer, and we did not. So then you sign your name. One thing that I did do and that is suggested is for all of the lines that you leave blank, you need to put NA on it so they don't think that you just left it blank. You need to put NA on all of the ones that are blank. So like interpreter, we didn't use an interpreter. So everywhere it asked about an interpreter, we put NA. If you need room for more information. So we used actually 2 pages of the additional information. So that is the I-129F. That is the actual application. That part was really not, that was the least of our worries. The other additional information and supporting documents that you have to provide are where it kind of gets tedious and you have to collect all this stuff. So then we included U.S. proof of citizenship. So I have to prove that I am a citizen. So I included a copy of my passport, a copy of my birth certificate, and a copy of my social security card. You only have to include 2, but I wanted to be thorough, so I included 3. But you don't have to include 3. I just did 3. Then you have to include evidence of intent to marry. So you just have to include anything, just a statement that's saying that you intend to marry that person. The fiancés have to include a letter of intent that just states we intend to marry within the 90 days using the K-1 visa. So mine just said, I hereby state that I am legally able and willing to marry Julio and intend to do so within the 90 days of his arrival into the U.S. using the K-1 visa. And his said, I'm Julio, I intend to marry Jordy within the 90 days of my arrival of the U.S. using the K-1 visa. Next we had a circumstance of meeting. So one of those questions on the I-129F asked, how did you meet? Wants to know kind of the explanation. So we didn't really have enough room on those 6 lines or on the additional 6 lines that were included at the end. So we included a full statement that was our explanation for meeting. So we said these were the following circumstances under which I met my fiance, not my Julio. And then I listed out things that we had done together. So we watched a movie at this movie theater on April 3rd. We went to a restaurant for dinner April 4th. We went ziplining on April 5th. All of the things that we did during that week, I included in this letter. And I put at the end, we continued our relationship with daily phone calls, video calls via WhatsApp, text messages, writing letters, etc. in addition to me visiting him in El Salvador until we recently decided to become engaged to get married. So that is kind of just an additional layer of me being thorough and making sure that they know that we did do a lot of things together. We have known each other for a decent amount of time before we decided to get married. Okay, next is our proof of meeting. So we already talked about how we met, but now we need to include evidence that we've continued to meet and we've continued to grow our relationship. So I included boarding passes and flight confirmation email, baggage charge receipt. I even had a little slip from customs that I just happened to keep, so I used that as well. And then I also included copies of my passport with my visas. You're required to have a visa whenever you enter El Salvador, so I included copies of my passport, and then I put these little sticky arrows next to the ones where I went and I saw him. It's also very encouraged that you include hotel receipts, whatever kind of receipts you can, like proof that you stayed in that country will help you a lot more. And as we stated in our first video, I had gone to El Salvador on mission trips, and the summer after we met, I had already planned that I would be spending 6 weeks as a missionary in El Salvador. But when I was there on my weekends, whenever I had free time, I would spend time with him. So because I didn't stay at a hotel, I stayed at like a missionary hostel, a missionary house. I had to get a letter from the president of the foundation to include in there, just stating that I was there during this time, I was a missionary during that time, and because I couldn't get a receipt, I paid for my rent for the 6 weeks I was there through PayPal. I also have a printout of the transaction between me and this foundation for my rent for my 6 weeks when I was there. Then we also have lots and lots of pictures. We used a ton of color ink to do all of this. We have, I think, 15 or 16 pictures of just the highlights of our relationship up to this point. Something I did include in these pictures was a picture showing proof of him meeting my family. It just helps if you can show that your families are both involved. So I included pictures of us with our families, him with my parents, me with his mom. Also included screenshots of our call logs. So something like this, just showing that we had been continually calling each other. So that is all of the I-129F form and all of its supporting documents. So it's pretty thick. That is the end of the I-129F, but you also have to show that when your fiance comes here, that you're going to have the finances to support him, so he's not going to be relying on government funding. So you have to include something that's called the Affidavit of Support. It's the I-134. So that is all for today. If you have any questions or if you need any help with anything with the K-1 visa, just reach out to us. We will be uploading more, but we'll see you next time. Bye!